If you were Italian or Puerto Rican, as long as you were Catholic and you were from the Bronx or Brooklyn, Shanley could write for you.
The reason that I know a lot about the Italian-American culture is because I grew up in an Irish-American household where they didn't value food or clothing or your general appearance, where sex was verboten. And I would look across the street at these families where they were eating great food and they were waving their hands around and talking freely about sex at the table. And they were wearing kind of fabulous clothes. And I was like, I want to go over there. I want to find out what those people are doing.
I'm Susan Conti, and this is my wonderful honey bunny, Tom Conti.
I'm Angela, this is Steve Dalsmaccio. I'm married 22 years.
My name is Rose Donato, and this is my husband, Fred Donato. We've been married 53 years.
Hi, I'm John DeLisa. This is my wife, Tony. We've been married now for 1.5 years.
We've been married for 40 years, and we're living happily ever after.
We met down in my neighborhood in South Brooklyn.
We met in front of Carvel, remember, in Brooklyn?
Childhood sweethearts.
Lived around the corner from each other.
I thought he was adorable when I saw him. I just...
Can't blame you.
Yeah.
She had a stepfather, and she had to be home at 10 o'clock every night.
I thought he was nice.
Come on. He'd be outside with the bat. He'd stay behind the door with a bat.
The old timers.
Forget about it.
My father liked him, my mother liked him. He was very respectful. He was, you know, came from an Italian family. That's all they were worried about.
So I spent a lot of time in Italian-American houses with a lot of good friends for a long time and soaked up everything that I didn't have.
A successful film has many fathers. Moonstruck was one of the best screenplays from a dialogue point of view that I had worked with.
I'm a playwright, and I had written a number of plays, and I had gotten some notoriety doing that, but I was slowly starving to death, and I decided that if I was going to change my situation, that I better write a movie. And so I wrote Moonstruck, though it wasn't called that at that time.
There was a lot of coffee stains on the cover of the script, which meant a lot of people had read it and passed on it. I read it and loved it, but my partner, Pat Palmer, he didn't like it at all.
My agent sent the screenplay to Norman. Patrick read it and called her up and yelled at her for sending him such a bad screenplay. And then Norman read it and called her up and said he wanted it.
You either liked it or you dismissed it. You have to see, I think, the potential in any script the first time you read it, because films aren't just about pictures, especially a Shanley screenplay. It's about talk. It's about dialogue. It's about interplay of characters.
Where's the ring?
Here.
It looks stupid. It's a pinky ring. It's a baby's. It's a man's ring.
It's temporary.
Everything is temporary. That don't excuse nothing.
The city is his palette from which he paints his characters. There are certain writers who were born here, who work here, who grew up here, that really have an ability to be very specific.
They're really specific characters. Loretta Castellini has a job as a bookkeeper in a sort of pickup situation where she does a lot of little businesses. And Ronnie works in a bakery and the oven's down in the basement. But I grew up in a place where one of the guys that I knew got his hand cut off on a bread slicer, and that always stayed with me, and he had a wooden hand.
The first step was to meet with Shanley and see if we were going to get along. His agent said, well, he wants to meet you first. I think he wants to audition you. I said, audition me? How many films has he written?
One of the first things that he wanted to do was sit down and read the screenplay aloud with me and play like half the characters, and I played the other half. And by the end of that, we were on the same page.
It was not an easy sell because it was one of those kind of scripts that wasn't a natural for a Hollywood studio.
The original title was The Bride and the Wolf, and Norman called me up and said, we're gonna have to change the title. And I said, why? He said, well, it sounds like a horror picture. And I thought about it for a minute, and I thought, well, he's right. So I gave him a list of 10 titles, and one of them was Moonstruck.
I gave the script to Alan Ladd Jr. and John Goldwyn at that time, who was his assistant. And I told them that I had to know within 2 weeks. And they said, what are you talking about? I got to know in 2 weeks. And I said, well, that's how hot it is. This is a hot script. And if I don't hear in 2 weeks, it's gone. John Goldwyn called me 2 hours later and said, I just read the script. And he said, you're right.
I believe in the separation of powers, and I had written the screenplay, and Norman was the director, and I handed him the screenplay, and he went off to raise the money and came back, I must say, pretty quickly with it.
Casting a film is very important. It's the one thing a director can do.
Norman was unbelievably inclusive and wanted my input on pretty much all of the major casting in the film. And he asked me if I would be okay with Cher if he could get her, and I said, yeah, if you can get her. You know, for me, she was something as distant as Alpha Centauri, but, you know, she was a phone call away from Norman.
I had never met Cher. And she said, well, why would you want me to play in this picture? I said, because, in my opinion, you're Loretta Castorini. And she says, I don't know how to speak with an Italian New York accent. I'm not right for this. The part is too old for me. And I said, you know something, Cher? If you don't play her, you will regret it for the rest of your life.
She told Norman, she said, I think you should know, I'm very difficult. I'm very difficult to get along with.
So anyway, I get this phone call that, well, she's interested, but you know, we got to do it quick, and she's got something more important to do, all of this stuff.
So he begged her for the part. And then when she went into it, she's just an extremely realistic, grounded actress. She's this person of great beauty and great value who is anchored to the earth.
And she has a great love for her family, and she's about to marry a man that she doesn't really love. She likes him, but that's it.
And she needs some Prometheus, some maniac to take her from her drab existence, which makes total sense but is killing her with boredom, and take her to the moon and the stars, which is the thing that she's been robbed of by her own nature. And that's what Ronnie Camilleri does.
I was dead.
Me too.
What about Johnny?
You're mad at him. Take it out on me. Take your revenge out on me. Leave nothing left for him to marry. Leave nothing but the skin over my bones.
Neither one of us knew who should play Ronnie Camilleri. Cher did, though. Cher wanted Nick to play that part, and it was really Cher that got him that part.
Nicolas Cage was the toughest because he's got the hardest part to play in Moonstruck.
My name's Ronnie.
Ronnie Camilleri, that's a tough role because he's got all that poetic stuff, you know. Nobody's perfect, you know. The snowflakes are perfect. We're meant to live and love and die.
Stars are perfect. Not us. Not us. We are here to ruin ourselves and to break our hearts and love the wrong people and die. I mean that the storybooks are bullshit.
He was the most tormented character in the piece. And so I tried to find the most tormented character I could find, and it was Nicolas Cage. I thought he was kind of a tormented soul.
I could even act like I'm totally a fish out of water.
When I met Nicky, I loved him. A wonderful kid. You know, you want to hug him. He's just a good person. Nicky Cage had that thing about him. You know, willing to chew the furniture if he had to do so in certain scenes. He did it.
And he was very young. He was much younger than Cher and a little on the young side for the role. And the studio did not want him. That was the only time I had some problems.
Do you want to just try it a little bit differently?
I think that's the best way I could describe working with Norman Jewison is it's comfortable, because he wants you to be comfortable. Because if you're not comfortable,